sharing our stories connects us. Listen and be connected. Join us for the conversation meeting weekly at the intersection of community and culture. Hosted by Mario Nunez and Joe King Carter.
There it is. We have to fist bump. There we go.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to this WMNF 88.5 FM, 88.5, WMNF.org. Listen, if it's Wednesday and it's noon, where else are you going to be but right here, listening to the conversation? I'm one of your two hosts, Mario Nunez, and as always, I'm seated next to my able-bodied partner in crime here. What's your name, sir?
Joe King Carter.
Joe King Carter.
Good afternoon,
Did you
ladies
hear
and
that?
gentlemen.
Joe King Carter. We're here. We're live. You're listening to WMNF once again. Hey, Joey, as we do each and every week, we marvel at the fact that these weeks keep coming at us like a freight train going downhill with no brakes. And it's really amazing because
I see that train a-coming.
Oh, go ahead, Johnny.
No, that's
go ahead.
just
The Men in Black.
Johnny and trains.
So we are. I mean, can you believe that May is almost over?
It's amazing.
Which can mean one thing and one thing only. We're going to be doing some fundraising here pretty soon, Joey. Is this a good time to mention that on the air?
This is a great time to mention that. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen out there listening, please, we're not ashamed. We need money. This station runs on various things, but mostly your donations. Yeah. So please.
Runs on love, too.
Yes, there's love and donations. There it is. Please hit the tip jar while you're listening to our show today. If you like what we're doing, shows come and go here in part because they are funded or not funded. And we don't want to be the guys that didn't get funded. So please.
There you go.
Yes, thank you.
We're practicing our pitch. We're practicing our pitch because it's coming soon and we know this. So, as always, community radio depends on your generosity. And we know we've got some of the most generous listeners in all of the Bay Area.
Beautiful
How many
people.
counties do we go out to, Joey? How many counties around this area?
I think we're in 6 counties. Is that correct?
6 or 7. I'm going to go with 6 or 7.
Yeah.
I know that it's a wide audience. And, of course, we are also on the World Wide Web. That's www for World Wide Web at 88.5, or better said, WMNF.org.
Absolutely.
So if you're listening right now in the Azores, and why wouldn't you be? You know, well, who's in the Azores? I don't know, but I know somebody that was there recently.
There you go.
And we'll talk about that.
You can live stream from Italy if you like.
100%.
Yeah,
Just take into account the time change. Because right now I think it's probably either 5 or 6 in the afternoon in the Azores.
And we're available in archive.
So, Joey,
yes.
Did you do anything exciting over the last week?
Tried to stay cool. And did all the things that I always do in my life with profound gratitude.
Yes.
For being here, by the way, folks. This is a time when all of these things are happening, that gratitude is the great Band-Aid of mental health. And we're going to be talking about mental health. This is our month to talk about mental health, as our mission requires. And so we're going to be talking about it. But
it is somewhat of an elixir. I mean,
gratitude.
Gratitude is really the only thing when you're in that moment of despair, and we find ourselves there a lot more than we ever have in the past for a lot of reasons. I mean, we're on the precipice of another hurricane season, and we see the devastation in the Midwest with tornadoes and the meteorological phenomenon that seem to be getting more and more intense each and every year. Loss of life, loss of property. Is FEMA going to respond? I mean, there's a whole lot of reasons to be sad.
Yes,
and full of woe and want. But today we're going to try to turn the corner a little bit because we're going to be talking to somebody special. Who can maybe unlock a couple of those doors. She's got a whole ring of keys. I saw them. They're in her purse, and she's going to maybe pull a couple of the... Right, Joey, right.
Wow, you saw her keys?
Right, I did. But I didn't see the doors. I couldn't find the doors or the locks. But we're going to talk to Dr. Kelly King today. Joey, tell us a little bit about who our guest is, and maybe you can introduce her to us.
Well, our guest today, I'm excited, is Dr. Kelly King, who is an MD and a professional at many things. I've looked at her. I was looking at her online presence last night and practicing here in the area, but let's just get right with it. Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for having me today. This is an exciting interview for me.
Thanks for joining us.
Well, good. Well, we're excited that you're here. So let's talk, as we always do on the conversation. We start with a personal narrative. Let's talk a little bit about you as a person before we get to what you're doing currently in the world. Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in the Bay Area, not the Tampa Bay area. I grew up in Oakland, California. My father was stationed there in the Navy in the 60s. He was one of the first African-American JAG officers there in the Navy. and my family's from Tennessee, and so they went west, and I was born. My older sister was born, and I grew up there in the Bay Area. So very blue. Very.
And that doesn't mean sad. That's not. You're not saying that you're a sad person.
No,
Why would you be sad
that.
coming from the Bay Area?
And so I,
politically speaking,
went to medical school though at the University of Tennessee. I am an internal medicine physician by practice, by trade. And then got to Florida in the Air Force. So I joined the Air Force while I was still in my residency. I did my residency program in Oakland, California. But joined the Air Force and got stationed at MacDill Air Force Base and came to Florida in 2004.
Kelly, how old were you when you decided to join the military?
Oh, wow.
Well, I mean, it's because you were already into your residency. So
I was already in my residency.
This decision came to you
I'll
a
tell
little
you
bit.
what had happened.
Please.
Was 911. I was in my first year of residency in 2001, and 9/11 struck. And
You felt a calling.
I felt a calling and decided to join the Air Force. And so I had already gone through medical school. And was probably my first year residency, and so and internal medicine is 3 years. So I did an inactive time period, inactive reserve, and then went active duty in 2004.
Wow.
That story is not uncommon, Joe. We've heard that from many
Yes, we
people.
have.
A little bit on the younger side, people that maybe didn't know what they were going to be doing. You certainly were on a career path at the time.
Right. I was already on a career path.
But that calling, and I guess your father's influence might have had something to do with that too.
My father, my uncle as well. My uncle was Navy, and he's a cardiothoracic surgeon there in the Bay Area.
So how are those Thanksgiving dinners? I bet they're a lot of fun.
They're very interesting.
I bet they are.
They're very interesting. They're very political. 'Cause my father is a attorney. My grandfather was an attorney in Tennessee, and so they're very they're very interesting. these
Conscientious,
days,
yes.
especially.
High level of consciousness.
So we've jumped way ahead, and that's great.
A little bit.
But let's talk. I just want to know what it's like to be, because I don't know anyone who's grown up in Oakland. What was that like?
Oh, well, growing up in Oakland was very, very interesting. Oakland has been on the forefront of many movements in the United States, just from the civil rights. I went to San Francisco State for a time, and so for the civil rights period, Oakland was very prominent. We had the Black Panthers there in Oakland. I was there when medical cannabis, they were the first program to have, they were the first medical cannabis program.
Wow.
Happened there in California, and Oaksterdam University is right there in Oakland. So it was, it's very liberal. We have Berkeley that's right there, UC Berkeley. San Francisco. So it's an interesting mix of grassroots
activism. Sure.
Along with this high tech. Then you have
you're not too far away from Simi Valley. Exactly.
Palo Alto, San Francisco,
Pepperdine University's there, Stanford.
Exactly.
So a lot of smart people.
This melting pot of grassroots liberalism and high tech billionaires. All
cohabitating in the area.
All cohabitating.
And were you in a because of your father's service? Were you in a kind of different kind of neighborhood, or were you just in a typical neighborhood out there in
I grew up
suburbia?
I grew up in East Oakland. So if you're from Oakland, a shout out to my Bay Area people. If you're from Oakland, there's the East Oakland, there's West Oakland, there's North and South. I grew up in East Oakland in the hills. So they called those the Fatlands and the Flatlands. So I grew up kind of midway in the hills. So we were middle class.
What kind of little girl was Kelly growing up?
Precocious?
I was always
Inquisitive?
I was quite mischievous.
Nice.
You know, I somehow I got that
Wait.
feeling.
Let's ring a bell for mischievous right out of the box.
I got that feeling. I
We
don't know
appreciate
why.
that here.
Yeah.
Yes, I was always, kind of pushing boundaries, asking questions.
Riding your bike as far as you could go.
And yes, and giving my mom a heart attack whenever I could.
Poor
Siblings?
I do. I'm the second in a family of 4. I have an older sister who works for NASA as an aerospace engineer. And so she's in Palmdale. And then I have a younger brother and sister who are there in the Bay Area. And so there's 4 of us.
Sounds like, Joey, sounds like a family of high achievers, my brother.
Well,
Sounds like there was a level of expectation placed on these young folks that
Yeah.
they knew it wasn't going to be, high school and then go out into the work field.
Well, yeah, that was kind of the
Right?
the standard
The mindset.
level of expectation. That,
Right.
that
Beautiful.
we were going to go to college. We were going to do something with our lives.
So Joey's not the sports guy that I am, full disclosure. But as you're saying, you were growing up in Oakland during these times. I was wondering, were you too young or right about the right time for the Reggie Jackson Oakland Athletics of the early 70s? Because that was a great time to be an A's fan.
I was born in 1965.
Oh, there you go. No, you were there.
I was
71,
there.
72,
That's it.
Sal Bando, Joe Rudy, I can go on. Gino Tenacci.
The Oakland A's.
The Oakland A's.
The Oakland Raiders.
Oh, my goodness. Kenny the Snake?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
yes.
Oh, yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
Oakland
Okay.
Oakland
Freddie
has some
Belindacoff,
history.
Freddie B-
Oakland
yes.
has some athletic history.
Yes,
and,
wonderful history.
Political history. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to establish. So now we kind of get a sense of her time in Oakland and just how exciting it must have been.
Yes.
Oh yeah, it was. It was an exciting time for my life, and I still go back to the Bay Area. I go back to the Bay Area once a month. My dad is still there in a nursing home now. But I go back and check on my family. Sometimes I do some work. I was trained at Highland Hospital, which is right there in Oakland. And so I still work as a hospitalist. So that was my training was internal medicine, hospital medicine. And since I've been here, I've opened up a clinic. It's a medical cannabis and functional wellness clinic, which I've now had since 2017. And I've been seeing patients from all over and now have probably, I'd say about 2,000 or 3,000 patients. It's not as big as some of the other bigger clinics, but I'm proud of it. And
But your name is on the
doing a lot
door.
of fun. My name is on the door.
There you go. That's the important thing because you control the horizontal and the vertical.
So let's talk a little bit about this though. What happens to a young person who decides to become a medical person or a doctor? Where in high school or your early life did that seed begin to grow?
Well, actually, that's an interesting question because for me, I didn't go to medical school until I was about 30 years old. So I was already out of college. My mother was a teacher and a school administrator. And so I had gone into teaching for a while, and I went and did a teaching stint down in South Central Los Angeles in the middle of the South Central, but I was there in the middle of the Rodney King riots.
Wow.
And they closed my school. My school was one of the first schools to close down. And after that, I decided to go into medicine. I had always had it in the back of my mind, but I guess I more decided I didn't want to be a teacher anymore.
Okay. What were you teaching?
I was teaching special ed. I was teaching elementary school, special education.
Okay.
And it was
But this seems like an unusual, this is kind of you're teaching special ed and all of a sudden, I think I'm going to be a doctor.
I'm going to be a doctor.
That just sort of happened?
That just sort of happened. I had always wanted to get into the medical field, and kind of, teaching was something that I could do. I did after I got my degree, but I'd always wanted to get into the medical field, and I felt like, I wanted to do it before I got too old to try, you know. And,
Okay.
and I guess you're never too old to try, but
But the
there are
energy
some
does
things
wane.
you
It's
need to-
easier maybe
yes,
earlier.
yes.
So, you know, I was about a decade late. Most of my comrades there in medical school were in their 20s when I went. So I was in.
Well, you had
I was
maturity
early
on your
30s.
side.
I had
Absolutely.
maturity on my side.
That's
Yes,
right.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly.
So now you go through med school, you become a doctor, and as you said, 9/11 happens.
Yeah.
You go into the military, and what happened in that experience? Talk a little bit about that, please.
Well, the military was interesting for me. I was coming from this kind of blue bubble in the Bay Area to a military base in the middle of Florida. And
Hello.
and
A little bit of
so
shock.
it was a culture shock,
Shock,
to
yes.
say the very least.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and I joke with people now, I was kind of like Private Benjamin coming to that Air Force base. I had not gone to officers candidate school yet because of the timing of things. And so, and I was my mom at the time was stationed in Sigonella because she worked for Department of Defense. So she was at Sigonella in Sicily. And I had done a month in Sicily after residency. So I was tanned. I had probably a shorts on coming up to the base going, I am Captain Inix and I am ready for service. And so
Reporting for duty.
I was reporting for duty. So they had to give me a whole. It was a very fast lesson in the military.
But you're reporting for duty as a person a little older than typically in that
I
position.
was.
Correct.
And you have a medical degree.
And I had a medical degree.
So how were people regarding
And you're tanned, lovely,
I-
African American,
And-
female. Anything else? We were wearing glasses and you're
in the middle
left-handed?
of Florida. In Tampa.
In Tampa, Florida. Wow.
I had never been to Tampa.
Oh,
And-
my
And then
goodness.
to make things worse, when I showed up on the base, that was the year you all had all these hurricanes that came through.
Mm-hmm.
And it was around August, September time frame, and that was when you had the 5 hurricanes.
Yes.
I
I'm
showed
trying to
up-
remember the year. 17, 18, something like
It
that?
was 2004.
Oh, four.
And I had and so they
Yeah,
put
4
me
of them.
on the officers, in the officers' quarter. Oh, they put me in the officers' quarters. And the next day, that 5th hurricane, like in 2 days after I had gotten onto the base, that 5th
We still talk
hurricane
about those hurricanes
had
to this
come
day.
through. I had nowhere to evacuate to. And I was in the officers' quarters looking, and that was back when they were on the back part of that base, on Base Shore. I don't know if you're familiar with that base. It was on Base Shore. So I was literally looking at the ocean. While
And that
this
roiling storm coming at you.
Hurricane coming at me,
Yeah.
looking at the news, going, what the hell
Am I
have I
doing?
gotten myself into?
What have I done
Was
now?
Captain
Can I
Innick,
quit?
was Captain Innick flying solo at the time? Was she flying solo?
I was by myself.
So on top of all of everything else,
Yeah, I was I wasn't
you
married
ain't even got a
yet.
cohort yet
No,
that you
I
can go,
wasn't
hey,
married. I was just, my family was in California going,
talk about an
you
adventurous
are
soul.
crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think I am, but I don't think I can get out of this anytime too soon.
Right.
I enlisted. So, so that was how I started. But the Air Force was a wonderful experience for me. I was the only active duty for 4 years. And then I went back to inactive reserve.
But you served your country.
But I served my country.
Wore the uniform.
And,
Absolutely.
and it was an amazing experience.
It
So-
sounds to me like, are you someone who digs the adrenal rush? Are you that person? You sound like an adventurer.
I am an adventurer.
I
Just-
yeah, that's what I that's what I
Azores,
see.
They threw me off a cliff.
100%. We're going to talk
Weeks
about that
ago.
in just a couple of minutes because
So,
that's the second mention of the Azores here on this show that
Yeah.
we've never
Yeah.
done before. But we're going to talk about that because we've got a fascinating story to share.
Yeah,
Let me give a number here up front, and then we're going to do a station ID because I want to make sure that if you've got a question or a comment, or Kelly King, Dr. Kelly King personally, and you'd like to share some of your insights, that you get a chance to call us. The number here is 813-239-9663. You can send us a text, 813-433-0885. Emails are welcomed. DJ@WMNF.org. Jessica will field your emails. Cheryl is standing by to take your calls. Please call us. We're going to do a real quick station ID, and then we'll come back with some more conversation with Dr. King.
Hey, y'all, I'm Annie Ellis, and you're listening to The Conversation with Mario Nunez and Joe King Carter on WMNF 88.5 FM, Tampa.
Oh, that's
There's my girl.
there's sweet Annie Ellis.
Annie Ellis.
Sweet Annie Ellis.
Yes,
Thank you.
ma'am.
Thank you, Annie, for that wonderful station ID. She was our guest last week, and if you'd like to listen to that show, you can find it in the archives. This show we're doing today with Kelly will be in the archives as soon as we finish. And, of course, my phone rings right during, because nobody told me to turn off my ringer, but that's okay. So, Kelly, we were just leaving you off at Hurricanes, Adventuresome Spirit. You're a single woman. You're in Tampa. You're in the middle of the heat of summer, when we all know the famous Samuel Clemens, a.k.a. Mark Twain, quote about the coldest winter he ever spent
was
a summer in San Francisco,
Oh,
baby
yes.
girl. So tell me how you felt about that heat and humidity.
The heat.
Come on now.
And the flatness of things.
Oh, of course. You're looking for anything altitude.
I was shocked. I was used to all these
Mountains,
hills and
hills.
mountains.
Yeah.
And so it was flat, it was hot, and it had a lot of bugs. And
You just described Florida.
that was Florida. That
I
was
am
my first experience in Florida.
I'm telling you, and this is a world apart.
World
Anybody
apart.
that's ever been out there when that fog rolls in and you know it, I mean, it's just...
It was a world apart. Just in, everybody was watching Fox News.
Yes.
They thought Bush was a great guy. It was, it was all quite surreal for me. But I was able to see other ideas and other parts that I just hadn't encountered. I just hadn't encountered. So fast forward, I get out of the Air Force. I got out. I got married. Actually, I met my husband. He is special. He was Special Forces, a Green Beret, actually, and had been stationed there for a time at MacDill. And so we met and got stationed in North Carolina. So I spent time in North Carolina up until 2013 when he retired, and we came back here to Florida. So this is kind of the second time I've been back in Florida. And now I've been here for 10 years.
And how long were you up there?
I was in North Carolina for, I guess, about 4 years.
Joey?
Okay.
Yeah, about
Joe,
4 years.
Yes.
I have a comment.
Yes.
No, it's for me. It's not a comment like an email. It's a comment for me. I think Dr. King is bearing the lead. She said she married a Special Forces guy.
Right.
Again, the adrenaline. She's got to be with, she's not going to marry the guy that's delivering the newspapers.
Well,
Right.
you see,
She's going to go SEAL Team 6 on us.
See, you
Go
said
on.
I wasn't going to be
Go on, Kelly, go
on
on.
a couch here talking to my psychiatrist. You said that. But I think
Well, tell us a little bit about your husband. Is it okay? Tell us.
it's
Please.
fine. We were married for almost 18 years.
Okay.
And we have a wonderful son, Robert, who's 14 years old now. He just graduated.
Shout out to Robert.
And it was definitely an adrenaline rush with him. He was deployed. Now, talk about serving his country. He was deployed 11 times.
Wow.
Got shot down in a helicopter, and is just your all around soldier. He's a good guy.
Good.
There you go.
Yeah.
Good.
And we thank you for your service, and we thank him for his service as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about this for just a moment, because I don't want to get to the end of the show and talk about this, and it is this, that speaking again of burying the lead, what I hear you saying a lot is how the politics that you grew up in, the place where you grew up, has informed your life a great deal.
It has.
And I sense that that's a really strong part of who you are. You can let it out here at any level you want to let it out. What is your feeling about that? Was your family also a blue family on the left?
Oh yeah, we're all.
Oh yeah, she says. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, my grandfather, as I said, he was one of the first black attorneys in Tennessee, and this would have been in the 30s or the 40s. He graduated in the class with Thurgood Marshall, and so he was a big civil rights attorney in Tennessee.
Wow.
And so that kind of framed my father, my uncles, just how they grew up in the South, which is kind of how he got to California. This is a black man in the Navy in the 60s from Tennessee.
Making his way out to Cali.
He went to Cali.
Yeah.
And
going back to Cali,
I'm not coming back here,
Right.
It just...
The black soldiers in World War II, when they found out what was going on in Europe, and then they realized, wow.
Yeah, wow.
Why am I going back there?
Why am I going back here? Why don't
I can learn
stay
Italian
in Europe?
Yeah,
Right, exactly. So it kind of framed a lot of how they were raised, and it framed a lot of how I was raised. And when I went to the Air Force, I saw that other people didn't have those views. It's one of the things about California. It truly can be a bubble. And so,
and it permeates up through the left coast. It permeates up through Oregon and Washington as well.
But you also have to understand the other side of the arguments and the other side of things. So this has allowed me to do that living here in Florida. But I opened this clinic, and because many of my patients are, medical cannabis patients, many of my patients are alternative medicine patients, I've been able to create kind of my own blue bubble of patients that are.
I want to be one of your patients, Dr. King. I definitely want to be one of. But it sounds to me like as you were describing your upbringing with your grandfather, certainly his influence on your father's, there was a healthy sense of jurisprudence that you knew, that people were being disenfranchised, because that was probably the conversation around the dinner table.
The conversation.
And you knew that you had to be a part of the solution, right?
Absolutely. That was the conversation, that there are disenfranchised people. There are people that need help. So part of...
Speak up for them. Advocate for them.
Advocate for them. Especially with healthcare disparities in the black and brown communities, so
underserved in many ways.
Yeah, so we've all tried to do that in one way or another in my family.
So you see, in a way, I also sense that you see in a way that your own practice now as a physician is a way for you to embrace your politics.
It is. It is in a way. It really is, because cannabis, and I know this is a whole other conversation.
That's another show that we're going to have you in on.
Medical cannabis. I mean, I see patients. It's like my own little internal medicine clinic for cannabis patients. I mean, I see a lot of mental health patients. I see a lot of chronic pain patients that want to get off of their narcotics.
Thank you.
I see a lot of PTSD. I see a lot of veterans that, just from me being a veteran and my husband being a veteran, I see a lot of PTSD patients. And it is amazing. They come in and they're on all these pills, and they're getting all these pills from the VA. And I sit down and work with them with a good program for medical cannabis. And medical cannabis is a tool in the toolbox. We talked about that
absolutely
earlier, especially in terms of mental health. I mean, and you can have different tools in your toolbox, but they all work together. And so it depends on what some people, they take pills, they take bunches of pills, and then you have all these side effects. I mean, as an internist, I know how to write pills, and people the older they get, and this is Florida, and so they get older, that's what you got here. And so they come in with 20 pills, treating various conditions, especially mental health. And we try to get them off of those, and we try to get them on a good, healthy regimen that includes cannabinoid medicine, but also includes things like yoga, things like meditation, things like, exercise.
And bless you for doing that, because, people need to have an off-ramp. They need to have an alternative, lest they be stuck in that revolving door. I mean, we're finding out now because we've advanced intellectually in the world of mental health and all of the remedies, potential remedies, that even psilocybin is now being offered as a means
I'm doing consultations now for psilocybin for patients that are looking at microdosing. So we do have consultations for that at our clinic as well. There are many things that have been here with us for thousands of years.
Of course.
That
they have been.
Are now maligned or illegal for more political reasons than medical reasons.
How long did it take us, Doctor? Forgive me for interrupting you, but Joey's got an interesting story he's going to share with us real quick. Joey, give us the Cliff Notes. Give us a short version. Because
what is my interesting
how
story?
long? Yeah, how long did it take us, Doctor, to overcome the movie Reefer Madness? How long? Well, Joey's got a story because the casita that he lives in Ybor City is next door to.
Well,
Quickly, Joe.
There is a direct relationship between the history of maligned marijuana usage and Ybor City, and it turns out that I owned a house next to the house I live in currently, in which a schizophrenic male named Victor Licata, on October 17th, 1933, came home one night and beheaded his family.
Get out.
5 people.
Wow.
Yeah, and he was schizophrenic, and that's the story. However, what happened was that at that time in 1930, the America created the first Federal Bureau of Narcotics.
That's correct.
Kind of based on the FBI.
Yep.
And the first director of that was a guy named Harry Anslinger.
Harry Anslinger.
Oh, you know
I know
all
the
about
story.
Harry
I know the
Anslinger.
story.
Very good.
Please.
So Harry Anslinger, who was a profound racist, wanted to use illegal marijuana to basically hurt the African American community.
That's correct.
And so he went before Congress in a famous hearing in which he presented 203 cases of marijuana-driven horrific crimes. Of course, what we now know is we can document that 201 of those cases were false. They occurred, but the people were not using marijuana. So basically, Anslinger lied. His lead case was this poor boy down in Tampa, Florida, in Ybor City, that beheaded his family because he was smoking marijuana. It happens, we know now that the chief of police of TPD at that time, that blood tests were available for marijuana use, and that he did a blood test of Victor Licata, and Victor Licata had not smoked marijuana. He was schizophrenic. That was his problem. And also, by the way, he had drank moonshine that night, so that probably wasn't helping him.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
I know the Anslinger story, but I didn't know this part.
Yeah.
This
So
part of the history.
Anslinger used this, and it is often documented that that's the case that the Senate went, oh my God, we got to do something about this.
We got an email that we're going to get to, but let me just offer this as a whimsical and even a lighthearted look at what Joey's describing, because for those of us,
it's hard to be lighthearted about beheadings,
axe murders, but for those of us that lived through the late '60s and certainly the decade of the '70s, even early '80s, and had our time with going to concerts and open air concerts and recreating with cannabis, marijuana, weed pot. I submit to you, Doctor, that if you're smoking good bud, not only are you not going to be able to find the axe, but you're going to have no inclination to wield it.
Yeah.
You know, you might be wandering around La Segunda Central looking for a pastry,
for pizza.
But you're not going to be.
But you know, the horror of that is that I know in my life growing up in Florida, I'm a native Floridian, that I know I personally know individuals who spent 25 and 30 years in prison because they were arrested for a joint. This is the great criminality of it.
Great criminality of it.
Let's get to that email, but thank you for bringing up that case. That's preposterous. Listen, I also submit to you, Kelly, what say you that just might have been in the proverbial peace pipe when the Native Americans smoked with those people that wore the belt buckles on the shoes and the hats, and they gave away Manhattan for baubles and beads? I think they were high. They were just smoking some good bud. They said, these guys are cool. Let's give them Manhattan. How'd that work out for them?
Yeah, I think they were, but they came from a whole.
What was in the peace pipe? They called it a peace pipe.
They came from a whole. And I will tell you, I have been in the hospital. for the last 30 years, I've been in hospitals and I've seen people overdose from narcotics.
Thank
I've
you.
seen people die from liver poisoning, from lung cancer,
Thank
from
you.
the cigarettes, from the alcohol. I've never seen anybody in the hospital dying of cannabis.
It doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen.
Jessica, read that email to us.
Okay,
Please.
So Bubba says that our guest is great today and
Of course
wants
she
to
is.
know what she thinks about the anti-DEI backlash.
Go.
Well, I think I disagree with the anti-DEI backlash. I think we have diversity, equity, and inclusion for a reason in the United States, and I think diversity should not be a term that's synonymous for what you're doing wrong. It's what you're doing right.
Correct.
Diversity in
Correct.
everything is necessary.
good.
Yeah, well,
Ask the cheetah population.
It brings all of the different. You're the sum total of your culture, of your language, of your heritage. That's what you bring to society. Right, and when you have different cultures and different ideas and different people from different walks of life that can celebrate where they're from, I think it makes us all better.
Absolutely.
And so to say that is illegal somehow is just beyond me. So.
By the way, let me just say that if we had a culture and a society in which we did not have prejudices and artificial boundaries put in place to hurt people of different ethnic groups, different racial groups, different gender groups, we wouldn't need
DEI.
we would need DEI laws.
correct.
So when you, as a person out there who has a politically conservative viewpoint, and you say, "Well, I think DEI is trying to legislate DEI is a stupid thing," well, folks, there's a reason that happens, is because it's needed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me just say that if you're just joining us now in the conversation, thank you for joining us. You're listening to Mario Nunez and Joe King Carter, and we're interviewing today Dr. Kelly King. Fascinating conversation. We're going to run out of time. I can tell you, Dr. King, that we're going to have you back because we're going to leave so much on the table. And if you'll be gracious to come back at some point, maybe we'll just check in with you quarterly so you can give Joe and I a mental health checkup. Because to be honest with you, we
Absolutely.
desperately need it. I mean, Joe,
Everybody needs mental health,
Yeah.
especially these days. I mean, we are stressing. We
Thank you.
are
Talk about
Yes.
that, please.
Talk about just going to the grocery store stresses some people out. And I talk to patients
Traffic.
daily. I have a whole telemedicine clinic, and I see patients in person, and that's their main thing. They may come to you with, "Oh, I can't sleep," or "Oh, my stomach is hurting." But really at the root of it, a lot of times is anxiety, and it's anxiety, and there's so many reasons, like you said at the beginning of the show. There's
So many.
so many reasons for patients to have anxiety. And I think as a professional, as a healthcare professional, we need to find better ways to help people cope with that anxiety. Because you're not going to, we're kind of in it, right? For the next 4 years, this is what it is. Unless you're going to move out of the
I'm
country.
counting days.
and
I'm
then you're
counting
gonna
days.
have-
It ain't 4 years anymore, doctor.
It is.
We don't know
where
what's
it
going to
is.
happen.
We
Correct.
don't know what's going to happen.
That's correct. And that is-
that in and of itself.
There you go.
Causes anxiety.
There you go.
Absolutely.
And so finding ways to manage it without having to pop a pill, which is, the side effects of those things. And don't get me wrong, there are times when medication is necessary, and I certainly believe that. But there are times when it's too many medications at once, that you're treating side effects of other medications.
Right.
And I have seen too many times when patients get off of all of that stuff and just start fresh and use things sparingly, and then do all the other stuff, exercise, do your yoga, do your, get your mental health to a place where you're kind of on a natural high to cope with what's happening. That is a better thing to do.
Which was a great song in the 70s, by the way. I don't want to bury the lead again, but it's Natural High by Bloodstone. If you're,
There you go.
There you go.
YouTube that song because it's really a nice song.
So we were not really designed to function under the kind of stress, as you know. This is your field. We were not designed to function under this stress. Our ancient ancestors sat around.
Fight or flight?
They sat around and did whatever they did, and then a bear came. They got freaked out. Either they killed the bear or the bear killed them, and then 10 minutes later they were back down to their normal level of adrenal and all their glandular levels.
Yes.
But today what we're having is people with cortisol. All these things are just being pumped and pumped and pumped.
That's right.
Because you're constantly being stressed by your world. Even if you sit in your living room and watch your device, you're being stressed by the horrors that you're
Very
hearing
stressful.
about.
Oh, very. And that clickbait to say which kid got killed today.
Yeah.
Well, if
It's called doom scrolling,
Very
and that's why it's doom
stressful.
scrolling.
It's called disaster porn, and news media specialists will will tell you that if it bleeds, it leads, and that's what. Just watch the news at 6 o'clock any evening, and the first 5 stories that they tell you, 4 of them are horrific murders, double
Right.
murder, suicide, and the 5th one's a house that burned down with all the kids and animals
Right,
inside.
right.
So, what is that all about?
And they're making money on that, and our children are growing up with all of this, and they're just
Therein lies the rub.
Yeah.
Therein lies the problem.
Yeah.
And
So-
a society can't survive like that. It's not
Right.
sustainable over the long term. It's not. Yeah.
So in your practice, what is it that how do you address mental, when your patients come to you, are they coming to you because of, they're not typically coming to you because of mental stress, or they are?
They absolutely are. So
Okay.
I have, when I first started my practice, I went to particular practitioners in the area. So I went to a psychiatrist, I went to a pain manager, I went to a neurologist, and explained to them what I did. So as a result of that, I have a psychiatrist who sends me a lot of his patients that he's worked with for many years. Dr. Devine, hello if you're out there. And
We'll send him the link.
So I see many of his patients that are stressed, that are anxious, that are depressed, that he has done an excellent job with them, but they've gotten to a point where they're looking at doing other things. And this way, we're able to manage them under, with specifications. I'm able to monitor their progress. So I see everything from depression. I see patients with some bipolar. I see a lot of patients with ADHD. I'm noticing we're having a lot of ADHD these days, and that's screen stuff. That's what it is.
Right.
So it's producing a lot of ADHD patients. And so we talk to them about how it's not just going out and smoking a joint. It's really being intentional about how you utilize this in your day-to-day life. And getting rid of other substances that
are much more harmful to the organic.
harmful.
Yeah.
Just stuff, the alcohol and cigarettes. Let's just start talking about that you can just get on any corner.
Right.
That's contributing to a lot of the health decline.
Joey, what was it that the American literature would have us believe that the Native Americans referred to liquor, alcohol as? There was a slang for it.
Firewater.
Firewater. Thank you, firewater. So think about firewater as opposed to, as opposed to the, excuse me while I take off my ringer, as opposed to the effects of cannabis on again the body, the mind, and the spirit. So one is completely diametrically opposed and 180 degrees opposite the other. Because when you're consuming firewater, you're much more apt to get in your car and drive 70 miles an hour through a 30 mile an hour zone. Where I suggest to you that if you've just consumed a gummy and 30 minutes later, you try to get in the car to go down to Dunkin' Donuts and relieve yourself of that anxiety, because you're going to race. You're going to race down the street at about 7 miles an hour, and you're going to be squeezing that steering wheel for all it's worth.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So go slow, folks. Go slow, because can you imagine? We didn't have ADHD when people were sitting on the porch whittling.
Yeah.
How do you whittle with
Just
ADHD?
walking
You'll
around
cut your
in
fingers
nature.
off.
Just walking around in nature.
This is all
just going
environmental,
on.
isn't it,
It
Doctor?
is all
Well,
environmental.
thank you.
Yeah, environmental
Boy, I went off there,
issues.
didn't I? Let me ring
You
a bell
did.
for myself. I don't know what I did
yeah,
there.
You must. You feel strongly.
I almost
about
fell off
that.
my seat. Did you see me?
You know, I will tell you this: as I'm not hanging out at the country club, but I am going through the world, and I realize that out in the world we are social, which means we are protecting ourselves to some degree as we interact. And I believe that what the cure for much of what humanity is going through is connection and
Community.
We thrive. We desire deep connection. We're not getting it. We're becoming more isolated. But what I have noticed, Kelly, is this, and I'd like to have you address this, because he's talking about the environmental, Mario's talking about environmental issues. As I go out in the world, and I'm a very kind of empathic person, sensitive, I see a lot. I've noticed it more now than ever before. I see a lot of what I would call them broken people. They're everywhere. They're in the parking lots of Walmarts. They're everywhere. They're broken. And
Not just the ones that are sleeping rough in the park.
No, I'm not just talking about the whole at all. I'm talking about guys who could be driving an Audi. What I mean is they're broken. They're strange. They're aggressive.
Disconnected.
They're weird. They're depressed. They don't know how to interact socially. At all ages, I'm seeing more and more of this.
I see more and more of that. And I mean, medical practices and hospitals are just kind of microcosms of what's going on in the greater community or society. And you see a lot of that. You see a lot of them self-medicating to.
And there we go, self-medicating.
Yeah, they're self-medicating.
Which you could be self-medicating with a lot of things.
With a lot of things.
Yeah.
With a lot of things, cannabis included. But you
could be exercising yourself to
with
death.
Food, with everything. I mean, and and as we age, you have to do things in moderation. Just because our bodies are older now, but people are coping. Anxiety is manifesting itself in anxiety and depression, and they may come to you and say, "Oh, I can't sleep," or "Oh, my dentist said I'm grinding my teeth at night. I have this bruxism. What do I do?" Or I have this TMJ. It's because you're going to bed and you're sleeping with all of this tension and all of this anxiety. You're having. I had a patient the other day. She's like 26 and worked for a Fortune 500 company and did this high powered job. And she was like, I don't know why I'm having chest pain and I'm short of breath and it can't be anxiety. She got really mad at me. I'm like,
well, it most certainly is anxiety.
I went to the ER and they didn't find anything wrong with me. There must be something wrong with me. Yeah, well,
Yeah, there's something wrong.
Yeah, but they don't see it as that, and they don't and they don't manage it as such.
Yes,
and our lives have been set up that we're not taking the time to do that. You look at certain areas of Europe. Talk about Europe. The women are given months to get over even having a child. They're in Germany. They send you to a spa. They send you as part of your work package. You get sent yearly to a
in this country, spa. Doctor. In this country, we're still in our infancy. I mean, we're still impetulant teenagers as it relates to what they've gone through in Europe for already centuries. They've learned because they've been there. They've gotten the knocks on the head and they've figured it out.
And we are still infants. We're still infants. So I teach patients to take time, like this retreat I went to in the.
Please talk about that.
It was
because we can live vicariously through you for a minute.
If any of you ever want to go to the Azores, let me know. I went with the Yoga House. Shout out to Diane. She's the owner of the Yoga House, and she does these retreats every year for patients who go to her yoga studio. And this one was at the Azores. We were in Sao Paulo. So the Azores is a group of 9 islands. They're in the northern mid-Atlantic ridge. So they're volcanic islands that are comprised of 3 different continental tectonic plates. So those plates have come together and formed these islands, kind of like how Hawaii was formed, right?
Perfect.
And they have formed these incredibly beautiful islands that not a lot of people know about. You ask 10 people, 5 of them maybe will know where the Azores is. And they like it that way. And so there's all this unspoiled coastline. It's right in the Atlantic Ocean, so it's right there. So we did yoga every day. We ate real healthy. We hiked. We went to waterfalls. I did canyoning for the first time, which was kind of jumping off of cliffs.
Excuse me?
Into very cold water.
Was there a payoff at the end of that?
Just that you did it.
Okay.
Sometimes
I don't know about that.
A lot of our anxiety in life is being anxious about what hasn't happened, and being anxious about the unknown, and stirring ourselves up,
and things we can't control,
and thinking you can't control it.
Right.
So going on at something like that, and having an experience like that where the whole point is that you can't control it.
You better
it's
let
nature.
go.
And you let go, and the sense of accomplishment and wonder, and just understanding that you can let it go and be grateful for
and
whatever
survive on the
happens,
other end.
and survive on the
How'd
other
you feel
end.
when you finished?
It was
Pretty
amazing.
accomplished?
Oh my gosh! Oh yes,
Yeah.
very accomplished.
See, there's that adrenaline rush again, Joey.
It
came back. It came back. Yeah.
Junkie a little bit.
I imagine when you took that leap, you probably squealed a little bit on the way down.
Oh,
Whee!
a lot.
Here we
Not
go.
me. No. No, it was a very loud mouth.
I had that experience the first time I experienced a polar plunge. When you get in that cold
That's what
water,
it was.
you go,
That's
wait
what
a
it was.
minute.
Yes.
Because your body just goes into shock
It's
real
so
quick. Then you come out.
exhilarating.
Yeah, of
So
course.
exhilarating.
Every cell in your body is alive.
Every cell in your body, and
Yeah.
you feel alive. And so doing things like that to kind of cope with the stress and the mental health and the depression and the things like that is what I tell patients when they come.
Joey, we're almost out of time. I
Yes.
just wanted to ask one more quick question, and then we want to make sure that everybody knows how they can contact you, Dr. Kelly. So make the quick connection for everybody listening. You alluded to it, body, mind, and spirit, because you got to have all three kind of working in unison.
You have to have all three working in unison. I study functional medicine in addition to internal medicine, and it's part of root cause medicine and part of keeping up. I look at it as three pillars. Your spirit, your mind, and your body. All of those should be connected and working well. That's part of what the endocannabinoid system does, right? It keeps us in a sense of homeostasis.
Nice.
And connected with mind, body, and spirit. And I think that is the secret to wellness. It's the secret to longevity. And it's the secret to happiness.
Oh, I love it. That's so good. And just the fact that you kind of lowered your voice and you kind of you went into a sort of sense of that was very pleasurable auditorily speaking. It was wonderful to listen to, and I felt even calmer just listening to you say that. So
you.
if people wanted to get in touch with you, your website, please, this is the time to share.
Absolutely. Relief MD is the Center for Medical Marijuana. New Life Wellness is the functional center. We're housed all in the same building. And I'm at 935 Oakfield Drive, and that's in Brandon, Florida, 33511. And my phone number is 813-651-3492. Sorry.
And I'm just guessing.
You don't call yourself a lot, I'm sure.
I don't.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb. It's a rather rickety limb that you might just know where Moreno Bakery is. Maybe I'm
right
thinking
around
that
the corner from Moreno Bakery.
Of course, maybe I'm because I know we're open.
OMG, I love Moreno
Maybe I'm
Bakery.
just thinking that if all else fails, a pastelito, something nice and sweet on the tongue to kind of.
Oh my goodness, I am right. If you all know where Moreno Bakery is,
Right
I'm
around the
right
corner.
around the corner from Moreno Bakery. I love it. I always am up there with they
The
have
smell
those,
is-
those empanadas are to die for.
Well, there you go, everybody. You
Yeah.
have met today Dr. Kelly King, and we are so just gifted and blessed to have you with us today to share just a little bit of what you know and what's in your heart and in your
Absolutely.
head. We're going to have you back because I think you provide a great service to our listeners and to our community at large.
And also, I want to say that I would not be surprised, I predict, given everything that I've experienced here today, that there might be some future for you somewhere in the political world because
Possibly.
you have what it takes to you're the kind of individual that we need working on behalf of all of us.
Thank you.
I see that, yeah.
It's a rough go because you got to be you got to have your boots on and you got to get in there and do a hard
there's-
day's
yeah,
work.
that's why we need good people.
Well, yes, but the other thing is, do we save the doctor? Do we save the doctor? Because the doctor's going to save a lot more people. I'm just thinking.
Well, she can practice while she's...
Either way, you have a home here on The Conversation.
I appreciate it.
Always, always, always. What a pleasure to meet you
It's been
today.
wonderful.
It's been
Thank you, yeah.
wonderful. Thank
Joey,
you for
who's-
having me.
Of course. Who's coming up next? Can we thank some folks for being
We
here
can
with
thank
us today?
some folks, definitely. First of all, I want to say thank you, as always, to Jessica Green, our OG, our board op, who makes all of this possible.
Quite
Doesn't
literally.
she?
Quite literally.
She makes it all possible.
Because we don't know how to work the board.
Oh,
Joey.
no.
Let's be honest
And
about that.
she's really our director. She just doesn't take that
Our
position.
new intern today?
And our new intern today, Cheryl. Cheryl Hill has been on the phones. Thank you, Cheryl. And then coming up is Jim Bannon.
How many more shows does Jimmy have? I know there's going to
I
be a
don't
change
know,
in
but-
programming. 4 more shows.
Listen to Mr. Bannon now while you can at this hour, because I tell you what, he's an amazing programmer. He spins those discs and
Like he
makes
knows
the
what he's
music
doing.
flow. Oh, he's great. I love his show.
And again, we've got some fundraising activities that are going to be coming up. We saw the new merch that's going to be available during this new fundraising time, and it's wonderful, as it always is. WMNF, the community, is here for you, and we look forward to you responding in kind by helping us in our time of need. We'll get more to that in the next coming weeks. But Jessica, thank you. Cheryl, thank you. Dr. King, our new favorite.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for being here with us today.
Absolutely.
You've been listening to The Conversation. I'm Mario Nunez. This is Joe King Carter. This is WMNF Tampa. Of community and culture. Hosted by Mario Nunez and Joe King Carter.